What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Quality Time with Drew Davis. And I'm here with a very special guest, a guy that I've been watching for a while now, a fellow receiver. So you know he's good people. He's got a beard, so you know he's even better people. We're here with my guy, Cam Goodson, man. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. How are you, brother?
Man, I'm doing great. It's great to sit down and talk with you, man. You are a wide receiver trainer and also beginning this venture, starting your business with a app and a platform that we're going to get into and talk about a little bit later, but you're doing so much great stuff. I love to bring people on the show who can help my student athletes and professional athletes, but more so that people can look at for their journey or what they've gone through being a student athlete and after they've wrapped up and you fit that perfectly to a T, man. And so I'm so glad to have you on because I know you'll bring value to people. And then you'll also have some people check out what you're doing and find out the right way to get to work and to get to what they're doing. And so I definitely appreciate you stopping in. And so first and foremost, man, I gotta ask it. I know you're from Dallas. I know you live in Frisco, a little bit north of Dallas. Are you a Cowboys fan?
Hey, you can say with your full voice, man. You know what I'm saying? You don't gotta hold back. But yeah, I mean, I would say, growing up definitely. Watching those teams, you got Tony Romo, Miles Austin, Des Bryant, those guys whenever I was in middle school, elementary school, they were very entertaining to watch. Now so much, I really just enjoy watching players, right? So I mean, you have guys on all these different teams. Um, that they're just fun to watch, and you see how they move and you kind of just root for them because you're like, man, like this guy, you can tell he trains a certain way. You might be able to tell someone isn't necessarily as athletic, but they're getting the job done consistently, and you kind of the guys you root for, right? So I'd say that's kind of more my style right now. I did the main receiver that I trained in the NFL, Ryan Flournoy. He is plays for the Cowboys, so I was rooting for him this last season for sure. But outside of that, I would just say kind of whoever, more of a player guy, you know what I'm saying? Less team.
I think we talked about that a little bit too. We was like, I started watching receivers and I started going towards them. But you said some names right there. It's hard not to be a Cowboy fan when you talk about guys like Miles Austin. You
Hmm.
talk about Des Bryant. I actually played with him. We came out the same year. Played with
Okay.
Des in the OD All American game in Orlando,
Yeah.
Florida. It was a horrible game, by the way. This was like their first year starting it. They were trying to compete with the Army All American game and all that stuff. So we're not going to talk too bad about it, but we actually had what was that all of Fort Lupkin? All of their coaching staff
Hmm.
was our coaching staff for the game. And so I know Des through that. And then we also played Des in the Holiday Bowl, I think my sophomore year, but definitely a
Yeah.
beast.
Oh yeah.
You talk about being a fan of Tony Romo. What do you think of Tony as an announcer? Do you like him? Do you put the game on mute? Do you actually listen to him?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I think he does a good job. You see him call it as it is multiple times. Now sometimes, he does say a lot, and then he ends up just being off, and you're like, well, nice try. But I will say he does consistently make some really good calls before the play even happens. And I feel like for people that don't necessarily know the game to like a deep level, it is probably pretty entertaining and like cool to hear those like pre-snap reads and everything.
Mm, 100%, man. And so anytime I get a student athlete on here, former student athlete, I like to ask them because this journey in the sports that we have, sometimes it starts within us where we just like, I don't know, I just wanted to play this for as long as I can remember. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a certain memory or experience. What's your first memory of sports or being around it?
My first memory, man. I would say. So I started playing like soccer actually whenever I was about 3 years old. So soccer is kind of the first thing I started doing, but I remember I was like 5 or 6, and I got a PS1. So I got like a PlayStation 1. I remember I had like Madden 2000 on it or something. And I start playing that, and just playing that game, I'm just like, and then my family was where they were big Cowboys fans, and so doing all of that and kind of being able to just watch it constantly. I started to fall in love with it a little bit, and I was like, Mom, you know what? I think I want to play football. She finally let me whenever I was around. I think I was like 8 or 9. So I started actually playing football, and I remember I just loved it, and it was hard. Honestly, I was not good at first. I could catch the football. I did not ever drop the football, but as for overall athleticism and body control, I lived on the ground. So. It definitely is something I fell in love with quick. But I would say, honestly, weirdly enough, probably playing the PlayStation 1 and then just family liking the game. That's probably what made me fall in love with it originally.
And that's so funny. You talk about Madden 2000, man. I found the cheat code on there when I played. You could just hit R1 on kick return, put Randy Moss back there, hit R1 two or three times. You bust outside the line, down the sideline for a touchdown. My sister's older sister's boyfriend was so mad at me because I was beating him when I was in like sixth or seventh grade. I was just
Oh
giving
yeah,
him the business.
back
Um,
in the day, you could always find the cheat codes on those games. Like, it's like Tecmo Bowl with Ronnie Lott. You know what I'm saying? It's the exact same thing.
100%. We gonna find it. We gonna find out if we on that game long enough. We gonna find out how to get them special moves done. But
Exactly.
you said something very interesting that I find funny too. So you say your mom was hesitant to let you play. My
Hmm.
mom was the exact same way, and I was bigger than the other kids, and I played baseball first. Um, and so you said it is funny when you meet somebody that admits like, yo, I wasn't that great when I was younger. Like I had a
Yeah.
lot of catching up to do. Did soccer anyway? Did you like soccer, enjoy soccer, and did soccer anyway help you be a better football player getting into it?
I would say, I mean, it definitely helped me with overall athleticism, and something that actually is backed by a lot of studies is athletes, especially at a young age, up until like that high school point where you kind of have to decide what you're going to do. Um, Being a part of multiple sports does help train multiple movements and gives you better overall athleticism. And so I think soccer definitely helped a lot with just some of the footwork and abilities to control my body with a ball. Because if you can do it with a ball between your feet, then you can do it without it way more easily, right? So I definitely felt like it helped. And then I would say over time, whenever it came to like with my mom talking about like, being hesitant, that was more so just because I was just so small, man. I'm telling you, I was maybe like 70, 80 pounds. And then even high school, I'm saying like freshman year, I was probably like 107 pounds. So
Ooh.
yeah, I'm telling you, man, I definitely was a little bit behind on size. So I would say that's kind of why she was hesitant, and I get it. But I just always had a lot more aggression, and I was very reckless with my body, hence all the injuries I probably had throughout my life. But yeah, I would say that's probably why.
That's funny, man. So we're on two totally different spectrums where you say you were small. I was one of the biggest kids out there. And just to give you an idea, so you talk about you were maybe, 70, 80 pounds at 8, 9 years old. I don't know what it was like in Texas, but we had a weight limit in Colorado.
Yeah.
And so that was I played baseball first, and my baseball coach was also the football coach. So they took me, they were like, hey, yo, they coaxed my mom into letting me play. Like I said, she didn't want me to play.
Hmm.
And I remember when they had the conversation with her, they're like, hey, Miss Washington, we really think Drew can be really good at football. She's like, yeah, I understand. I'm just afraid of him getting hurt. They say, ma'am, you don't have to worry about Drew getting hurt. You got to worry about Drew hurting these other kids out here. And so I vividly remember that first year, I go to suit up and everything. We're practicing all summer, and it's leading up to the weigh-in. And I remember they just started making me run a lot. And I kind of knew why, but I was just like, they wouldn't let me eat that day. Like I was running before and
Oh,
after practice. So I was like right on that 80-pound limit for being able to run the football. If not, I would have had to be a patch player and play offensive and defensive line or whatever.
oh
So
man.
long story short, made the weight, played football, played tailback at that point, played quarterback, and did some great things. So we had a great team. But it's funny because the parents do have to make that decision, and they're like, I'm not gonna leave my kid at a disadvantage to go out there, get hurt, or to be one of the smallest guys out there. But for me, it's interesting because football is one of those sports where the smallest guy out there can be the best guy. You got to be
Yeah.
fast, you got to be quick. People can't touch you, like we were talking about Barry Sanders earlier.
Yeah.
But you also hit on something great, man. And this is what me and my boys always talk about. We talk about parents wanting their children to specialize early. And you said,
Mhm.
hey, there were some great things in soccer that crossed over with football. If you can control the ball with your feet, that's helping hand-eye coordination. That's helping your eyes if you're a receiver, just even drills or footwork that you do.
Mhm.
Um, how much do you preach to? I know you don't work with this. What message would you give parents about their kids that they're putting in sports at an early age?
I think specializing and really bringing it down to, and I'm going to be honest, I've had a few parents hit me up with 8, 9 year olds that they're like, oh, they're a receiver, and I'm like, okay, like, they might be a receiver right now, but you don't know what they're going to look like whenever they get older, how they're going to be moving. so they kind of force them to adopt this single position or this single sport. And honestly, what they don't realize is that's doing a lot of damage to their overall athleticism. And whenever it comes to, even if you are a receiver, right? What do you do as a receiver? You're training a lot of, unilateral movement. So you're moving just, forward, or you're moving laterally, you're cutting. There's not a lot of, you're not going to be practicing your backpedaling, your crossover run, stuff like that. But then what happens if you're a receiver and then in high school, especially college, I mean, you're playing special teams, right? How are you going to be able to make drops on kick return? How are you going to be able to do all these things and have that body control and do all of that whenever you've never even trained it your whole life because you've started specializing as a receiver at a young age, right? So I feel like it actually is doing a ton of damage. So as a parent, it's really important to make sure you're putting them in multiple sports, because I'm telling you that overall ceiling of what they can do, even if they're practicing all these other movements, they're playing basketball, they're doing whatever other sport, it is going to carry over into football and give them way more of a higher ceiling to be great within that sport as well.
Man, thank you for saying that. That's from a certified professional. Y'all don't have to listen to me all the time, but make sure you listen to Cam because he knows what the hell he's talking about. And so, as we hit on that, man, I want to make sure that we take time to talk about you as a player, because I think sometimes we overlook that. The people that are, a lot of the people that are teaching and training people, they've played before.
Mm-hmm.
But what was Cam Goodson like as a high school athlete and as a college athlete?
So I would say one thing, especially over the years, I've gotten more and more extreme, right? So in high school, I was very focused. Obviously, I would still do stuff with friends. I would do all these different things. But I was very gritty, and I was very ruthless in like the way that I played. As I said, I would just throw my body at people. I really didn't care. There was no hesitation with anything that I did. And I was a hard worker. I mean, I remember, honestly, right now, I don't use agility ladders in my training with my athletes, but I have the same one that I started using in 7th grade. And I remember I would sit in the backyard, and I would just be doing ladder drills and all this stuff for hours on end with just by myself. And my parents really didn't care if I was playing sports or not. So it was just kind of my own thing. So I would say high school wise, I was definitely disciplined. But I enjoyed life, and I was very good at, not being very extreme on just football and just thinking football. So I was able to enjoy that younger age for sure. Now, whenever I got to college, that's whenever I started to really become extreme, right? So this is post-military. So I knew I was at a disadvantage, right? I mean, I'm about 5'8" and 3/4. I was playing at about 175 to 177 pounds whenever I was there. And then honestly, even during spring ball, I dropped down to like 170 flat. So I was definitely undersized, and I wasn't the fastest. But the one thing I did do is I was able to perfect everything else that I was doing, right? So my routes, I was not wasting any movement. I was not wasting any steps. I was catching anywhere between 500 to 1,000 balls on the jug machine every day. I was doing all the proper recovery every day. I was doing prehab. Whatever you could do. I mean, I'm telling you, I was at that facility before coaches were, and I was leaving after they were leaving while still needing sleep, right? So then I had to sacrifice sleep. So I will say, as a college athlete, I was very extreme. And it is something that I don't regret at all, because I know I was at least able to pour everything into it that I possibly could. And I don't have any questions if I could have done more. And I feel like that's the biggest thing is, right, people look back and you're like, man, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. And that's the one thing I guess I've always been scared of. I don't want to look back and have regrets about not putting in enough effort, right? So I would say within football, yeah. I mean, I've definitely been on the more extreme side, but college is whenever I really like turned on the heat with that for sure.
And like you said, man, it's so funny just hearing another receiver talk, and you're doing things that we know that there's non-negotiables. You working on the quick foot ladder, you being able to beat 500 to 1,000 balls on the jugs machine. Like those are like regular things, or should be regular things, that receivers or people that are getting better trying to do. And other people look at that like, wow, you're working so hard. Like, no, this is what the job entails. Like, if I'm going to be a receiver, these hands got to work. Like, there ain't too
Mhm.
many receivers that these hands are bad. But you said it, and that's what I want to dive into next. So you talked about when you came back, when you got into college, you were in the military before, and you said you were even more, I ain't gonna say manic, but you were more you were more aggressive with it.
This
And
might
so
not be
you're
the improper term.
it is all good. It is all good. That's me over here making stuff up. But
Oh man.
you have a unique path because most people go, and the majority of people, high school to college and play. And I know a couple Mormons that went from high school and went on their mission and then went to college and they're
Yeah.
25 playing against 18-year-olds.
Right.
But you went to the military after high school.
Mhm.
Why was that your path of the journey that you took?
So I would say it kind of goes into what I was just, previously talking about with not having any questions, right? And not having any regrets. I feel like I had no understanding necessarily. And honestly, whenever I ended up joining and I kind of got into it, I was definitely caught off guard by a lot of things, but I really had no understanding of what it was. But it always intrigued me. And it's something that, you get a lot of those people that are like, oh, I could have done this, but this, or like, I wanted to do this, but then this came up, and I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that guy that has excuses as to why they didn't do something. Right. Um, but I was very intrigued by it, and I wanted to experience it. So, I mean, I did go all in. I ended up choosing infantry of all the jobs. Right. So I was like, you know what, let's just go all in. I actually took my ASVAB. And he was like, you're eligible for about every job. He's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, infantry. He looked at me like I was crazy because it's like you don't need any kind of good score to do infantry, man. So, but yeah, I mean, it was just more. I feel like it was just an experience I had to have. Especially as a kid, you're kind of raised thinking that these military personnel and all this stuff, that they're kind of like elevated, or you have like this sense of respect for them. And especially down in the South, you hear people thanking them for their service and all this stuff, and you're like what are they doing? Like, it just kind of brings about that curiosity. And you see them and they're always like, so like they're kind of like stoic, and they have like and obviously whenever you get older you kind of realize, and I did realize a lot of stuff while I was in, but I feel like it was more just it was an experience I wanted to have, and something I just kind of wanted to have the full understanding of what it was.
Man, I got you. And once again, I appreciate your service. 3.5 years in the Army, correct? Correct me
Yes,
if I'm
sir.
wrong. 3.5 years in the Army. He always says yes, sir, too, but I know where that comes. That's from one, from being down south, and then two, for being in the military forces. Um, and just along the lines of that, I think it's so funny because there's so many parallels between being a student athlete or being an athlete on a team and being in the military service. Now, the one delineation I want to make is the military service, that's no do-overs. If you're out there in the battlefield, you're out there at war, like there is no, regroup after a mistake if it's a big mistake that costs
Mhm,
you and your unit and your infantry something.
mhm.
But with football, like it's the same thing. You have a team that you're depending on, guys. You need guys to do their job, and then also it's this discipline and this structure that you
Yeah,
get because that's how they get people to fall in line. But it's more so because as men, that's what you need out here in the real world. You can't just
yeah,
wake up any day and be like, I don't know what I'm about to do today. Like you got to know what you're gonna do, and I
yeah.
think being in football helps outside when you graduate and outside in the real world where you wake up and you still have some type of regiment that you have. And I
Mhm,
know you talked about it a little bit before. You said, hey, when I came from the military to college, like I was more focused and I was more dogged with it.
mhm.
What kind of similarities did you experience firsthand from being in the military and then also just going to college as a student athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I would say similarity wise, it definitely, whenever you talk about kind of how it is similar in the fact that, I mean, you have a team and you have other guys, like there is a culture aspect, right? And I will say, especially my last year in college, whenever I was the receiver coach, um, that team, like the culture and the how tight knit that team was. I mean, we had double overtime games, we had overtime games that we won. We started the season 0-2, finished 9-2, right? Um, so definitely seeing like the just what that cohesion can do with performance is huge, right? And then same in the military, right? You have guys that there are points where their lives they're at risk, right? And they've built these bonds with people, and you're around these people all the time, you're close to them, right? So it's like the aspect of communication, right? And making sure you're constantly on the same page, and making sure that there is no misunderstandings. So I feel like communication was a big one, right? So being able to communicate with your guys, making sure you're on the same page, making sure you have the same goals. But also I feel like one that a lot of people kind of, undermine is the fact that just that natural bond that you have and that care that you have for the person to your left and to your right. Right. I mean, you see guys, I mean, I don't remember what game it was this last season. I want to say it was like Ohio State and Michigan or something where they like all started fighting in the middle of the field. Right. Just because, but it's like this dude just pushed this guy and then they're all brothers. So what are they going to do? They're all going to go too. Right. And it's at the end of the day, it's, you have these people that you care about, you've been through pain with, you've done all these different things with. And I mean, you love those guys. And I would say that's probably the biggest similarity I saw is you have like that tight knit group and you have to communicate and you have to make sure you're on the same page all the time. I mean, I'd say that those are probably the most similar things. Obviously the structure too, college, you know how fall camp is. So, I mean, fall camp, man, shoot, you're there from about 5 a.m. to about 10 p.m. So, oh man, so you got a lot of structure there. This time. So I feel like it was very, very easy for me to carry over. I definitely felt bad for some of the freshmen though. That's a big transition.
I know, major transition. And you saying fall camp just gave me a little bit of PTSD, just a little bit, just knowing just how around the corner that was. And you'd be like, man, that was probably it was the best, worst time of the year because you're like,
Yeah,
all right, cool. We're one step closer to the season after all this spring training or after all this spring ball, this summer football and workouts, this summer school. And now we're right here and we just got to get through this fall camp and then we'll be to the season, which is one of the best things. And so just leaving on the last thing, we're talking about the Army, and you were stationed over in Alaska. And what was that like? Because I know just you can get daylight for a whole day. You can get just a whole bunch of weird stuff. How was being stationed in Alaska?
Man, I will say Alaska is very different. The people there are different. The environment's different, especially from Texas. I'm used to the heat. Cold is about, you're looking at like 30, 20 degrees here. You might get a couple days in the teens. Alaska, you're looking at about -30 sometimes. It was nice though, I mean, I had the sides nice and shaved because we're supposed to in the military, but I had my top long. So what I do is, I'd take a shower and I just put it in place, go walk outside and just freeze where I wanted it. Right. So I'd say that was you saved a lot of money on any kind of hair stuff for sure. But I would say it was cold, man. But it was a good experience. I would say we did a lot of our training up in the Arctic Circle. So I was in an airborne unit. So, we did all the jumps out of, C-17, C-130s, Black Hawk, Chinooks, any of that stuff. And so we'd take planes up to the Arctic Circle. We'd jump in with all of our equipment that we needed for however many weeks. And, it'd be about -30. You'd be sleeping in a sleeping bag, just on the ground. And I would say, I will say the sleeping bags were really good. They were really good, man. They were really high quality. You were warm inside of it. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it was definitely an interesting experience, but honestly, looking back, you're just like, man, like that was kind of cool. Cause I even remember, and this is kind of a funny story. This was a practice mission with a Canadian recon team, and they had these LAVs, which are just different types of tanks, right? So they had these tanks, and we're going across this river, and they crashed the tanks because it was frozen over, and dude he said it kept sliding, and I'm like, okay. So, I remember I like hit my head against a pipe. I was like, whatever, I get out. But I remember I look up, I have night vision on, I look up and I like see something weird. I'm like, what in the world? So I like flip it up and I look and it's just like the northern lights are just filling the entire sky, man. I'm saying every color you can think of. The rest of that was pretty bad because we walked for about a day and a half straight with like 100 pounds up mountains. So that was not fun, but the northern lights were really cool. But oh man, but no, I'll say Alaska's cool, man. I mean, it's a cool spot to visit. I think everyone should go and visit, seriously, summer or winter. Living there, yeah, you couldn't pay me to do that again, that's for sure.
One time is enough. No, that's awesome. You speak about the Northern Lights. You speak about being in these -30, but you're in a cool sleeping bag.
Yeah.
And this is the last question because I'm like, man, I'm just blown. Because we think football's hard. Football's tough. Football's hard. But once you do something like go to the military, and like you say, you're sleeping outside, -30 degrees, you're already creating. You've been in that environment in high school with a close knit group. You guys are all fighting for something. But now you go do this with being with the military, the armed forces, and then you come back into college. What did that do for your mental toughness as far as what you were able to um, take in when it came to football, the hot summer days of running, or the horrible weightlifting days, or the sandpit days you guys might have had,
Yeah.
especially in being in a place like Tennessee? What did that training do for you mentally moving forward in your career?
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like I have a tendency whenever I have any kind of struggle or anything going on, or I start to feel bad for myself or just anything, right? I feel like I have a tendency to look back and I'm just like, this literally is nothing. I'm going to be honest. College football compared to that stuff, while college football is hard because of the level of talent of these players, right? So it's like, even, I mean, I played at the FCS level. Um, those dudes were dogs. Like their natural athleticism, the strength. I mean, you're over here running full speed for hours straight in the morning, and then you're going straight to the weight room and you're squatting 500 pounds, right? So it's like the ability to do that is extremely difficult. And obviously, you got mat drills, you got all these different things, and they're difficult. But if I'm being like fully honest, I feel like the peak pain of the military is by far 100 times worse than anything that you experience in college football. Um, you have times in the military where you're just like, man, like you don't even want to be there. Like I'm telling you right now, you kind of have to turn your brain off. And I feel like that's something I got very good at. Is I was able to, whenever I was in pain, I was able just to shut my brain off, and I was able to perform at a high level without even thinking about it. Um, it gives you that ability to kind of shut that off and just go through the motions, not in like a half-ass way, but in a way of, you're not being affected by the pain or any of the struggle that you're having in that moment.
Mm. I appreciate you being honest, man. It's funny. I'm not trying to shit on football because I know football is tough and football is hard, but you're
Yeah.
like, yo, with military, with those cats and what they got to do. And like, I remember Coach Kelly used to bring around a lot of military, like Navy SEALs,
Mhm.
Green Berets, like stuff like that into our program and into what he did in the NFL.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, like we talked about, there's a lot of similarities, but it's also like you have to do so much training. You have to do so much stuff to be prepared for the moment, because when the shit hits the fan and the bullets start flying, there's no like, hold on, let me look at that play again. Let me see what we're doing. Like everybody needs to know what they're doing. And so I appreciate you really
Mhm.
elaborating and talking about that. And so you do 3.5 years in the Army. Now
Mhm.
it's time to go back to school or to go play some college football.
Mhm.
Where are you choosing from, or what was that process like when you're thinking of going to a school and finishing out your college career?
Yeah, man. So I'll say this is where it got fun. Um, after the military, I would say I was about 6 months out from getting out, and I knew I wanted to play. I'm like, I got to get back, because I remember, dude, I would just see it on TV, and I was hungry. Honestly, I was like, I felt like I was missing out, and I missed the game. Um, and I had a long way to go. So I remember I came home for, I think it was around like Christmas or Thanksgiving or something. I came home for about a week or two, and I met up with one of my trainers. He was like the strength coach for my high school. Whenever I was in high school, and he kind of saw me, and he was like, "Man, I'm be honest," because I was powerlifting in the military. And he was like, "Man," he's like, "You got to cut some weight," and I was like, "All right," so because I just was not moving well. So I remember he sent me back with a plan, and I did it for about 6 months. And then I come back. I was cut. I got rid of all that body fat. I got rid of anything that was kind of holding me back. I was moving somewhat decent. Honestly, it was terrible. But this is where I started realizing I needed to reach another level, because you watch these guys and you see their talent level, and yeah, you have this fantasy of, oh, I just know if I work hard, it'll get me to where I want to go, right? But it's like, that's where it's not necessarily working hard, and I will say I definitely did, but you have to be smart, and you have to start to really understand your body and why you're moving a certain way. And I feel like this is kind of where it helps me train a lot of other guys, because I wasn't very naturally athletic. So after that, I just really, really, really started training a ton. Um, I took very few days off for a long period of time. I was hitting the field about twice a day, and I was hitting the weight room every day. So I was training about 3 times a day. And my plan, I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Texas Tech because I was kind of communicating with their walk-on coordinator. And I was like, I'm going to go to Texas Tech and I'm going to walk on. Now, taking in mind, this was right whenever COVID hit, right? So this was the COVID just hit. And so I went there, and the first trial got canceled because of the whole COVID situation. And I was like, that's fine. You know, they had their like weird season. And then I remember I just kept training. So at this point, it had been about a little bit over a year of me training. I want to say this was like, I think this was March. They had the tryout. I go there, and first off, I'm the first one there. I would say, I think I got there like 3 hours before it even started. I don't know why I did that, but I got there 3 hours before. I was like, coaches are walking in, they're probably like, look at this guy, like. But anyways, they didn't even send. I'll be honest, there were really no coaches at the tryout. It was like some of their graduate
GAs and cronies.
Exactly, and so they weren't really paying attention. I remember they had me running drills that I just wasn't prepared for. I was having to change direction. I was like having to do I was having to move backwards and all this stuff. And this is where I said that's important, right? You still want to be an overall athlete, especially because realistically, what I wasn't thinking of is, oh, I need to play special teams. Why was I not training multiple directions before this, right? So I would say that did the tryout. I remember I go to like a class, I think it was like chemistry or something the next day. And I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I know they're about to put out the list. So my plan, I'm like, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk straight from this class to the door and just see my name's on the list. They have the list out. They have your times. They have all your stuff. They have names highlighted. I look, no highlight by my name. And I'm like, all right. So I remember sitting there, I'm listening to music. I'm walking back to my apartment and I'm like, what am I going to do? And so I just go. I remember I went to the gym. I think I lifted for like 4 hours. And at this point, I think it was like 12 or 1 p.m. I lifted for about 4 hours. Then I hit the field for like 4 or 5. I just didn't stop. And I was angry. Honestly, I was upset, and it did suck because I remember, I mean, I've just put in so much work. And I know I put in more work and I wanted it worse than all the guys that did get the opportunity. And I remember thinking while I was there, I'm like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a video. It's going to be like a combine type video, and I'm just going to send it to every single school in the nation. So what I did is I started training for combine drills. I gave myself 3 weeks. I did it every single day. So I was running L drill. I was running the shuttle. I was running 40s. I was doing all this stuff. I was sending stuff to my speed coach. I was trying to get like form correction, stuff like that. I hit decent times, honestly. I think the 40 was like a 4.6 something. I mean, it wasn't great. I still didn't hit like peak speed yet. And so it was like a 4.6 something. I mean, shuttle was like a low 4.1, and then 3-cone was like a 6.9 or like a 6.8. So, you know, it was pretty decent, but then I tagged my routes in there, and I would say my routes are kind of what helped me stand apart. So then I put together the video as soon as I finished recording the drills. Like I do it right then. And I just start sending it out the next morning. My plan was, I'm like, coaches are going to get there at like 5 or 6 a.m. So I'm going to wake up at 4:30 and I'm going to send it. So whenever they get there, it's the first thing they see in their email. So every single morning, that was the first thing they saw. And I started to get some responses and I got interest. But the biggest issue I was running into is because of that COVID year, everyone got an extra year. They didn't have roster spots. So I had some schools hit me up. I remember I was talking to Washington State for a little bit. They kind of were going back and forth with me, but they were like not really necessarily willing to commit yet. And it was just all this stuff. But then Austin P, I get a call from one of their guys. He ended up only being there for like a year while I was there, but he calls me and he's like, hey, we watched your film. The entire coaching staff watched it and we want you to come out here. He's like, can you be here in about 2 to 3 weeks? And I was like, yeah, like I'm coming. So yeah, man. I mean, I packed my stuff up and I was there 3 weeks later. And then from there, we started summer workouts, I think 2 weeks after that.
That's how you go chase something, man. Like the opportunity is not sitting there right in front of you. And you're like, man, I want this. I'll do whatever I need to do. Like you start thinking outside the box and really being proactive in what you're doing, man. So thank you for being vulnerable and even telling the story about, Yo, I was mad. I went and lifted for 4 hours. I don't know if I've ever lifted for 4 hours, but there, there was a time where I got cut in Atlanta my very first year. No, my second year.
Yeah.
And the person that they picked in front of me to go was like a short dude. I think they drafted, no, he was coming from another team, I want to say. But I had a better camp than him. And like you said, when it was time for cuts and when they brought me into the office, and I'm like, when you've done everything you can and you're so sure and you're so
Yeah.
thank you for being vulnerable and even telling us this story, because these are the things, like if you're young out there and you're still trying to find your way or still trying to break into everything that's going on, you got to figure out how to go against the grain. If
Yeah.
you get a lot of no's, you're going to get some no's in life, period.
Definitely.
But you sometimes you got to create those yeses, and for you that ended up being something where you were able to go and play college football at Austin P under a very good coach who's now at UTEP, if I'm correct,
Yep.
still
Yes,
doing
sir.
his thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so as we talk about that, man, so you go to Austin P, ball there, you do what you're supposed to do. You have an injury. We're ACL brothers. You've torn an ACL. I've torn an ACL. It's not fun. But that led to some better things on the other side of that.
Yeah.
What? Tell me about your injury and how you got injured and how you tore your ACL.
Man. So I remember that morning. So I want to put this into perspective. I honestly didn't realize this till about a year out because my strength coach told me because I just didn't remember. But my rack partner was this guy Sam Howard. So I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff I posted with him. He's a linebacker at Tulane. Um, but me and him, we were on the same squat rack, and so obviously he's huge. He's like 6'1", 6'2", like 230, 240. Um, we were always on the same rack. We were always lifting together. And we had done the day before. I remember we were doing like Hatfield split squats. And I feel like that's kind of where I probably overdid it. And so we're doing Hatfield split squats, with the bar over the shoulders and everything. And he I think he hit like 495 for 3 reps, single leg. And I was like, my legs were stronger than his, so that pissed me off. And so I was like, you know what, screw it. So I put 565 on. And I remember I hit it for 3, but I'm saying we like loaded that thing. We went crazy heavy that day. And then the next morning, I remember my legs were just a little bit fried. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to take some ibuprofen just so I don't lose any speed. Cause that was the biggest thing is if I felt like I was going to be slower, just take ibuprofen. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I took some ibuprofen and I remember we're doing one-on-ones and take in mind, this is summer workouts. This is about 3 or 4 days before fall camp. And we're doing one-on-ones. I'm going against some freshmen and I'm like, he tells me to run like a wind route. I'm like, nah, dude. I'm like, I'm gonna run a little, I'm gonna come straight back down my stem. Like, because that was my best route. Honestly, I was hitting that thing in 3 and I was out in full speed. Like that was by far, I got separation every time I ran that route. And I was very confident in it. So, with that being the case, I've ran it tens of thousands of times. Right. And no contact. I go slam my foot down, take that trigger step, and my tibia stayed in place. My femur kept going forward. So, I, yeah, that's everyone heard it. I mean, there's dudes across the field. They just heard just a little pop noise, and they all look over. And whenever it was me, yeah, there's a lot people knew how hard I worked. So yeah, it was definitely frustrating. And I would say that whole recovery process, it was hard. And you definitely, and this is where what not a lot of people talk about is the mental toll it takes. Cause you do go because honestly, right then, dude, I was in the best shape of my life. I was fast. Like I didn't even know I could ever run this fast. So I'm watching film and I'm running faster than all the other receivers and I'm lifting heavier than everyone. Like I was really at my peak receiver wise. And you go from that to being like, it's actually, and honestly, what I had been told from the coach the week before is that I was going to be playing too. So the first season, I didn't get any playing time. I didn't even travel with the team. But the second season, he's like, hey, you're going to be utilized this season because I was just balling out. I was doing all this stuff. And to go from that to it just being done and you not even having any athletic ability, you're not able to do anything. It definitely, it takes the mental toll. And honestly, I think I did not handle the recovery process the best. I definitely pushed it. And that's probably why I still deal with some issues in my knees for sure. But I will say mentally it's taxing, but The biggest thing and the biggest advantage I found in this situation is anytime you have that kind of in between point in your life, you're transitioning from one thing to another, and you kind of go through like those freezing periods. You know what I'm talking about? You're busy, you're busy, you're busy, and
Hmm.
then you kind of get life just freezes. Those are like the points that you just really want to capitalize, right? Because that gives you the ability to kind of pull away from everything, look at all the lessons you've learned in the previous phases, and look at how to carry those over into the future. And I would say at the beginning I was not in a good mental place, but as that like kind of kept like carrying on, I kept getting through the process. I started like realize a lot of things about myself, a lot of weaknesses, and honestly, ended up being a good thing because I feel like my mental understanding of just all the experiences I've had. Because as I said, I went from high school to military to football to what I'm saying. It was just constant focus and tunnel vision.
Yeah,
It kind of let me pull back, learn things from those lessons in my life, and start to form me into who I need to be. And I feel like that's why I was able to kind of step away from it whenever that next fall camp did come and I wasn't necessarily ready to play, because I started to be able to identify with something other than what I was doing.
man. Once again, thank you for being vulnerable, man. Non-contact injuries are the most horrible thing. Even when I still watch games and I see him, and you can just know right from the get-go, like, oh man, he's. I hope this, and this is what I end up saying. I hope that's just an ACL. I hope it's just one thing. I hope it's not PCL and LCL and all this
Yeah,
other stuff, because it's crazy. One, everybody talks about the turf and everything people are playing on. But it's just so crazy that we can do all this work in the weight room. We can get under all this weight and squat and do this. And then something as simple as us changing direction, not even full speed sometimes,
yeah,
and it just goes on us. So
I know.
uh, I appreciate you sharing, because, like you said, and you gone from high school to military back to college. And like you said, you didn't have any transition time in between. So that downtime kind of helped you slow down, look at yourself, do some self evaluation on yourself,
Yeah.
and then you say you come, and I think the worst part is that you said, like, the coach says, I'm gonna get some burn this year. Like, this is what I've been working for.
And
Like,
hey, all I have to say is we played at Alabama that season against Bryce Young, Will Anderson, all that. I remember I had a picture of Will Anderson taped on my mirror because I was just gonna clock him.
that's that mercenary you hear about when he's talking about in high school, where he's just trying to hit stuff. That's that same thing. But no, but
Oh,
that's the stage that you plan for too. Like a good
yeah,
game against Alabama, or doing something crazy against Alabama that a scout sees, that all scouts are tuned into. You don't know what that does for you for the next level, for the upcoming draft, for pro day, for the NFL combine, for getting a free agent shot. Like, I can see how, being, like you said, being at an FCS school, like,
mhm.
those are the matchups you look for. They pay you to come play, like, oh yeah, we're gonna come kick your ass real quick or whatever. But like, nah, you wanna I'm gonna get a couple catches and I'm gonna get some stuff
Hey,
on.
and I'll say we played that year I was coaching. We played at Tennessee, and we were leading for almost the entire first half. We ended up losing by like 10.
Yeah,
But oh man, that state, there's nothing like Neyland Stadium. I'll tell you that, man. That stadium is loud.
it
Hey,
is.
those fans are crazy.
We played there my sophomore year, or no, senior year actually.
Yeah.
Senior year, when they had a Dooley, I think it was Dooley, whoever
Oh
Dooley.
man. Oh
So I
yeah.
think he got fired that same year, but
Yeah.
but we talk about this. So you get injured, you have to deal with that, the mental aspect of it. You said you probably rushed a little bit too quickly to get back.
Yeah.
Knees didn't feel great. You said it was probably a combination between college and a little bit of the military. So then you have to make this big decision on, like, I think I might be done playing football. And you have your conversation, you have a conversation with your receiver coach. How did that go? Or how did that turn into the next opportunity that came up for you?
Yeah. I mean, basically, he just first off, me and him we were really tight, and he did have honestly whenever we first met, I came in there for like the meeting. He was a new receiver coach because our previous one decided to step away from football, and he dude had my respect fully. I mean, if you watch his film, whenever he's at Baylor, um, I mean, he was that first off that receiver room was stacked, right? Whenever RG3 was there, that receiver room was crazy, but he was still able to hold his own and get some opportunities in the NFL. But I mean, he would just hit anyone. I'm saying his blocking was crazy. Dude's strong. Dude would never work out, go into the weight room and bench 315. So I don't even know how he was doing that. But we sit down and there's just a lot of mutual respect, and he was rooting for me, and honestly, he definitely was always there, and he was very supportive, and if I ever needed help, he would be there to help with it. But he definitely I think he saw it coming because it's just, I mean, even on film, they'd like watch film. They're just like, man, because like, remember there was even one point I would like went to cut and like I just fell. Like I don't even like my legs just gave out. And so they're watching the film, they just see it, and I'm just not moving the same. I didn't have that same capability. So I think he was expecting it, but I walk up to him like, listen, man, this is what's going on. And I'm like, I don't really know what to do. I'm like, I want to keep pushing through it, but I'm like, I really feel like I'm at that point that if I do, like, I might not be able to walk, like, by the time I finish playing. And he was like, yeah. He's like, I mean, he's like, as I said, I've seen it on the film. I've seen that you're in pain and that you're struggling. He's like, he's like, I don't want you to necessarily go anywhere. He's like, let's talk about like maybe you being, you know, slot receiver coach or doing something, just getting you a part of the coaching staff so you don't have to leave. And he's like, let me talk to the head guy, you know, Scotty Walden. And he's like, let's see what he says. So I remember I go through the practice, and I already, since I knew I was going to be done, I was giving up like a lot of my reps to some of the other guys, and they're like, dude, are you good? Like, cause they're just used to me like taking every rep possible. Right. But I'm like, at that point, it's pointless. Right. So I'm just like, I want them to actually get better and get those reps. So I remember I started giving reps up to them, and they just like are looking at me like crazy. They're like, dude, are you okay? Like, and after the practice, Walden walks up to me. He's like, what's going on, man? And I'm like, I gave him the same rundown. He's like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. And I'm like, all right. And he's like, yeah, just like, let's get you on the coaching staff, stuff like that. He's like, it's going to be a little bit of a weird transition, you know, especially you just being a player. And it's not something that happens often. You don't go from playing with a team to coaching those guys. It's a weird transition. So at first he was kind of like, he kind of let me ease into it. And I'm like, dude, just let me do this thing. And I'm like, and he's like, all right. So then I was like fully on the staff before the season started. Thank God I didn't have to be during fall camp. That would have sucked. Oh man. But hey, so I got out of the fall camp part, but during the season, it was still, dude, I'm telling you, the hours of a coach, especially him, that dude, he would have us there all day, every day. We'd sleep maybe 2 or 3 hours a night. It was terrible, but that's why I didn't stay coaching.
It was that nice time to dive in where you got to experience it, and you look around and you're like, yeah, y'all got this. We're good. I'm good over here.
I will say that whole coaching staff, especially Coach Walden, anything, if he ever needed anything from me, I would do it. Like that's the best head coach in the country right now. And just because of his passion and how much he cares for the game and his obsession, I'm telling you, UTEP will continue to get better. And then honestly, he's going to finish there at some point. He's going to go somewhere bigger because that dude's going to have success.
Yeah. One thing, that is a great opportunity for you to have, for a wide receiver coach to bring that up to you, to walk it up to the head man and to tell him, and for him to have that conversation with you, because not everybody gets that opportunity. And then for two, because it says a lot about what you were like as a player, that they trust you, that you can possibly make this transition to be a coach, to coach people that you were just in the room with not too long ago, to people that you've taught, to people that are your peers who you might have partied with, done some things with, like that coach and player line. Like, and I've seen it and I've experienced it with a couple of friends I've had. Yeah. Like, you can't, the people that you hang with, you used to hang with them, you can't hang with them no more because you're a coach now. Like, some stuff switches. So knowing that they had confidence to offer you this position says a lot about you as a young man at the time, says a lot about your work ethic. Like you said, says a lot about what the other players think about you. You tore your ACL. You got guys that are on the other side of the field that know how hard you work for this opportunity, know the work that you put in, that are just heartbroken and torn up over it. And it means a lot. So like that opportunity. So I know people who, and that's what I say, one thing I say about my journey in getting into coaching. I was a GA at Central Florida for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was my wide receiver coach, Scott Frost, who's back there again, who called me to come out there. I told him, I don't really want to coach. He's like, hey, I know you don't want to coach. We got a GA position. I know you want to do player development. Maybe that position comes open the year after this year. They were in their second year at the time. And like you said, the hours, crazy. Getting there 4:35 in the morning, putting cut-ups together. It's not for the weak.
You're scripting at like 12 a.m. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be start practice at 5 a.m. the next day. It's just shoot, man. Like, oh man. Yeah, it's not good.
It's not for the weak at all. And so you do that, become an assistant coach. So right now you are a wide receiver trainer and then also a co-founder of Elite Locker.
Mhm.
I would like you to go ahead and tell the people more so what Elite Locker is and what you are building it into.
Yeah, man. So I would say the biggest the biggest issue I've run into, especially you see as a trainer and athlete, what it's kind of what I've talked about, right? You first off, you go on social media and you have all these different things. You have this person saying this person saying this, and it's all these different opinions and all these, but it's like what do I even do? How do I handle this? You don't have necessarily anything to compare to. You have people speeding up videos, you have people do, you know what I'm saying? It's just it's a hard, it's like that with anything within social media. Even you see it with like, you know, girls comparing themselves to other girls with their looks, and just it social media just has that natural effect within anything, right? But in the athletic space, the biggest problem you have is lack of resources and lack of actually training with intent. um, and I feel like for me, especially in my situation, you have guys that are blessed to be out here in Dallas, where we have a hub of amazing like receiver trainers and all this stuff. Like there's so many out here, and I have guys, even I know guys in New York. They're like, we don't have anyone. Like that's a big state. You know what I'm saying? So, um, getting those resources and being able to do that, I know for me would have been absolutely huge, especially in my process going from, you know, military to, you know, Division I football. I mean, I feel like there was such a learning curve once I got there, because I didn't really understand everything. So basically, our goal was to build something that allowed people to get, you know, full training and be able to keep up with what they're doing, tracking their workouts, kind of give them that baseline of where they need to get to, and kind of stuff like that through, you know, leaderboards and different features like that. So we created Elite Locker. I would say this is around the time that we kind of started doing some stuff, around the time that I just started coaching. But we definitely have gotten into it heavy and completely changed a lot of things. So what it does is it kind of gives people, as I said, the ability to, you know, you can track workouts, right? You're able to log those workouts, kind of be able to keep track of how you're progressing with different things. And that's not just weight room, because that's what you see a lot of people do is just training, focusing on the weight room. There's nothing that's made for people to actually get training within their sport, right? Especially in football. I feel like the football community is just archaic. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to fix that and give kids more ability, especially with, you know, it's growing in Europe and all these different things. You have all these different places that football is just absolutely blowing up, especially with kids in smaller towns. I have a kid that drives 3 hours from Oklahoma, one way, just to come and train. So it's, you get these different things, and it's giving them that ability to do those things while also we have these leaderboards. So they can actually, within programs, they're able to kind of see how where they're at versus other people that are the same age or in the same program. But they're also able to get coaching from some of the best coaches. But while doing that, that's helping the coaches kind of put all of their training in one place, and also gives them more ways to, you know, monetize, you know, their coaching, you know, internationally without people having to fly in and do all this. So they're saving, it's saving the kids money, but it's also making the coaches more money, while making sure that these kids are able to fully develop everything they're doing. And obviously we have a lot more plans with, you know, other stuff that we're wanting to, you know, launch in the future. But the biggest thing right now is we do have that ability for, you know, coaches to go on there and make stuff. We currently have a wait list up. So it's elitelocker.io. So the wait list is live, and we're trying to launch it as soon as possible. So we're kind of just waiting for, our group of people to come through. So
Man, I love that. So y'all, if y'all are trying to get on this wait list, don't wait. He told you about it. You heard it here first. Get on this wait list to get in there. And like you said, there are people in New York hitting you up. They're like, man, I don't have a trainer out here. Like, it's
yeah.
unfortunate, but it's also like, hey, get on this and you can get the same amount of work other people are doing. So I like when people bring forward what was I gonna say forward focus, more forward thinking ideas. And we live in a world like we talked about, like with social media, we're so connected now. With the internet, we're so connected. You don't need to be somewhere in order to work with Coach Cam Goodson. Like, you can go through this app, you can get all the stuff you need. You can compete with people that are on that leaderboard. Coaches can bring some stuff in there. So I'm excited to see what you're doing with this. I'm a support. I'm gonna give you my full support in whatever you guys are doing. So let me know how I can help you guys in any way. And we were talking before this, and one thing I really appreciate about you as well is that you're a trainer, but you've also taken the educational path to get the things you need to be as effective as you can in this area.
Mhm.
Getting a bachelor's in kinesiology, getting a master's in performance enhancement. Why was it important for you to do that in this journey?
I feel like you have a lot of guys that they have experience, and you see, and this is something I do see a lot in the training industry, and I'm not going to name anyone, but there are a lot of trainers that have, either big followings, or just that, they gain a little bit of traction and they start training all these guys like, oh, well, this guy trains with them. So, but it's like you see these NFL guys training with these trainers, and the movements that they're making are so inefficient, and they have them doing so much extra movement. Um, and that leads to a lot of issues. It can lead, first off, it can lead to injury, right? Um, but also, it just leads to, as a receiver, what's your job? Your job is to get open, catch the football, and then run with the football to the big rectangle at the end, right? So, with that, how are you supposed to gain any kind of separation if you're taking little steps and doing little things in between, right? Because that's giving that defender more time to react, right? Um, so I feel like that's where it becomes a lot of the Instagram stuff, right? People comparing like, oh, he's doing this flashy stuff. I gotta start to work that. So I feel like for me, it was being able to do that. Now, one thing I actually do take very seriously is training movements. So you'll see, especially I've posted this a lot on Instagram and all those different things, but with my guys, let's say we're doing a speed cut day, right? Like we're really focusing on speed cuts. I have an entire set of plyos and like half kneeling stuff and all this stuff to train every single little step of that movement. So whenever we actually get to the speed cuts, you've already worked every single movement and you've been explosive out of every single movement, so you don't lose any speed whenever you go to make the speed cuts, right? So I would say just that natural understanding of like, the biomechanics and how muscles move and where the insertion points and origin points are of those muscles, so you can help, tailor to that athlete, make sure that they're able to actually move properly. And because you see a lot of guys like, well, you need to be doing this, but it's like, okay, like this guy, like he's just not developed that way. And I'll say even this with one of the receivers I've worked with, his he walks up to me last summer and I'm like, I see his quads and I'm like, your quads shrunk. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, your VMO, which is, vastus medialis oblique, which is that inside part of the quad that kind of wraps around. It helps a lot with like preventing knee injuries, knee stability, stuff like that, deceleration. But he walks up to me and I'm like, your quad shrunk. And I'm like, what were you doing back home whenever you were with that trainer? He's like, oh, we were kind of doing this, but there was just no quad focus, right? And I'm like, dude, if you don't fix that, you're gonna injure your knee. Sure as hell. First week of NFL camp, you know what happens? Injures his knee, right? So I feel like that ability to prevent that injury and do that stuff is just really important. You have a lot of guys that are just going off of vibes, to be honest. They're like, oh, well, I think we're going to kind of work some of this stuff, work some of this stuff. But if you're not able to handle everything all in one spot, that leads to miscommunication, all that stuff too, right? So let's say you have especially in the NFL level, I mean, dude, you should have someone that does everything in one spot. You should not have this guy doing this guy doing this. Because what do you think? Do you think they're communicating everything and staying on the same page? Because then you're not actually managing workload. You're not able to do all these things. You're not able to correct the movements that need correcting on the field within the weight room, because everything should correlate, right? The point of the weight room as an athlete is not to get jacked. It's to perform better on the field, right? So I would say those are the biggest things is, just being able to have both sides of it and be able to maximize every athlete that I do work with, for sure.
Mm. Thanks, Cam. So if you didn't know, Cam could spot if your quads shrunk from just how precise and how and how much of an expert he is. He's like, bro, your quad shrunk. They're probably like, what is this dude? Why he looking? But like that's how you know somebody knows what and I try not to cuss, but what the fuck they're doing. When they can spot if you've been working out with somebody else, just like my barber. There's sometimes I go back in town to Denver to my barber, and he sits down in the chair. He let somebody else cut you, huh? And I'm
Hey,
like, nah,
no.
just a lineup, but that's why I asked you that question, man, because it's like you said, I'm never gonna dog anybody out. Like we said, I played in the NFL, you played in college, we both played in college. there's people that are doing stuff that they've been taught or stuff that they've seen, but there are people that are really experts and really wanted to know exactly how they can get you in the best shape and in the best position that they can with what they're doing and what you guys are working towards. And
Yeah.
so if you don't find and seek out those people, when me and Cam were talking earlier, I was like, if you're a parent and you have your son or daughter working out with the trainer, and your son or daughter can't ask the trainer, what exactly does this, how is this movement helping me? And the trainer can't sit here and equivocally say, oh, this is helping with this. Like Cam just said, he does all his plyos, if they're doing a speed out day, are built on that type of movement to help with that speed out, to give
Yeah.
them that kind of and I don't even know what I want to say, that kind of repetition with it. So when you're the first time that you run a speed out, isn't the first time you ran a speed out with the mechanics and with the things that you put into place. And
Yeah.
that's the sign of a great trainer. And so I wanted to make sure I touched on that, because I can't have an expert in the space, somebody who's really good at what they do, come through here and not explain that to some novices or some people that are wet behind the ears. And it's
Mhm.
not bad that you don't know it, but more so now that you know it, what are you going to do with the information? Are you going to seek out the trainers that know what they're doing, or that kind of have a process of what they're doing? And like you said, they don't just come out here and say, today I feel like we can do this and this and this. Like, what
Exactly.
is helping the athlete?
And I will say the biggest thing too is like you got to realize everything that you do and everything that you pursue or you want to achieve, especially in something as, I mean, it's a very small gate into the NFL, as you know, right? I mean, you were balling in college and NFL, like that was a completely different thing, right? I mean, it's difficult. It's hard. There's so much talent, and they always are going to find the guy that's younger, cheaper, faster. You know what I'm saying? Like they're constantly trying to find that next guy. So it's like you have to realize to get to that level, there's always someone that is going to be working harder, but you don't negate that and go against that by trying to outwork them, right? And you can, right? You obviously you want to be the hardest worker, but if you're not using your resources and the things that you're able to apply to what you're doing, and you're not actually improving something, people go to the field and I'm like, what do you do? It's like, oh, I did like some ladder stuff and these cone drills, and I'm like, for what? And they don't know why. And it's like, how is that actually progressing you towards where you want to go? You have to fix your lateral movement. You have to be able to fix, throwing your elbow out of a cut. You have to fix that trigger set. Like, you have to fix these things. So why are you not focusing on those? And it's one of those things. It's also, it kind of comes with a lot of kids as well. And this is just an immaturity thing. I feel like I had the same pride whenever I was that age, right? But being able to criticize yourself and realize your own weaknesses, and be hard on yourself so you can actually improve more, the more that are kind of covering up that sense of, because you don't want to question yourself. Your brain protects you from that. That's your brain's job, is to protect you, right? So you're naturally just protecting yourself. You don't want to hear anything negative because it makes you insecure, makes you question. But the more insecurity you feel, that's discomfort, and that discomfort is going to lead to you having a lot more success. So I feel like that's the biggest thing with guys like that, for sure.
Man, you sound like a coach, 100%. And so with everything you've done, so you're in the training space, you have the right things you need for that. You have a bachelor's, you have a master's, but even doing this and training people, the psychological aspect has become even more important to you. Why has that kind of grown as an important aspect of everything you're doing as well?
So I feel like, to put it in simple terms, right? Let's say right now I'm talking, right? Or I pick up my arm, or I run, I do anything. Where does that start? Where does that movement start? Starts in the mind, right? So if you don't fully understand your mind, you don't understand yourself, you don't have control of your mind, you don't have control of your emotions, you don't have control of all these things, that's going to inhibit everything that you do physically. So, but that's what you see people skip over. I mean, even with a lot of things that you see going on with just recent events and stuff like that, you see kids that are exceeding every single way with their physical traits, right? They're doing great things on the field, the track, all this stuff, but then they're not able to make good emotional, mental decisions, right? They're acting out of impulse. They're distracted by this person saying this while they're trying to perform. It's all a mental game at the end of the day. And football is I mean, if you see these NFL guys even talking about it, they're unaffected by the guy on the opposite side of the field. If they're a really good receiver, they're playing chess over there. Cause what they're going to do is they're going to be evaluating you because they know they have enough control. So they're going to be seeing what you do and they're going to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna run this hook route. And then, I'll make it look like I'm running a hook route. Then I'm gonna do this. And it's just a big game of chess, right? But that carries over into every other aspect of life, right? So if you really want to have control of not only your physical ability, but also if you don't understand yourself and you, as I said, you're identifying with just your sport, that's going to lead to you being very limited within the sport because your performance is also limited. Your brain is the most important muscle you need to work. And if you're not working that, and I will say even in high school, like I completely ignored that in high school. And I wish I had someone to tell me like, hey, you got to like really I probably did, honestly. I just probably ignored it. But I will say like, that's what gave me an advantage in college. I mean, I went from bottom of the depth chart my first year to shoot my way to the top my second year. And what do you think that was? It wasn't that I was more naturally athletic than those guys. It's thinking smarter. I was able to make so much progress in 1 year because first off, I was in control of my emotions. I was in control of my mind. I knew I was realistic with myself. I was like, oh man, this guy does this better than me versus being like, oh yeah, no, I'm better than him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, how do I look like that? Or how do I do this? And I'm asking them questions. I'm doing all these things. If you're able to do that, I promise you, and the less protectors you're able to get rid of within your brain just to protect you from any kind of criticism or anything, and you're just able to actually fully accept it and be receptive to that, the more success you will have in every single aspect of your life.
And like I say, man, everybody looks at football and they look at what people are doing on the field, their talent level, their skill level. But a lot of that stuff starts right in here, from being
Mhm.
able to block stuff out, from being able to have the discipline to not react to something or respond to something when you have a lot more to lose than somebody else. And so I like that you're getting more into it because you're like, yo, I got this. I'm mastering this, or I got a good grip on this. How else can I help my athletes and how else can I help these young people get a step ahead of the competition? And
Yeah.
so, man, as we close out, man, I always like to throw it to my guests for the last couple questions. And any advice you have for any student athletes or professional athletes from Cam Goodson?
I mean, we've been able to touch on a lot of it. But as I said before, being able to have control of your mind, being able to develop more, especially high school. I'm telling y'all right now, the amount of information you can retain in high school and the amount of things that you can do mentally in high school is you guys don't like, you don't even realize. But I will say another big thing that goes with that, if you're able to master that mental side, it'll carry over into everything. So look at my story, right? I mean, I faced rejection after rejection with all these different things. I've had the ACL. I've had being too small. I mean, I've had because I'm gonna be honest, like, dude, people aren't my size playing Division I football very often. It's not doesn't, and especially because I was not a 4-4 guy, that's for sure. So it's like it doesn't like you're gonna have all these negative things that stack up against you, but it's like if you just remain consistent, you keep that tunnel vision, you ignore all the outside noise, and you are confident in yourself and who you are, and you're not just identifying with that thing that you're doing, you will have success. But you need to be thinking, as I said, or working smarter instead of harder, because the more time you spend on something, someone is spending less time developing the same skill. So
Mhm.
you need to find those little edges that you can get, so you're just constantly just pushing over people, just getting on top. Because if you don't, like I'm telling you, there is someone doing it. There's someone with better resources. There's someone with more money to pay for better resources. There's someone with more natural talent. There's someone that has a better mentality. There's someone that doesn't have anything and they're just so locked in that they don't care about anything else. So especially for, I mean, anyone, there's always going to be something that you lack that someone else has, and it's a matter of who can master that, but also add more to their arsenal over the years to actually have success in what they're pursuing.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. Work smarter, not harder. But more so, you look at Cam and you see a picture of somebody who didn't have all the intangible things as far as the size, the strength, the speed. But what he could work on and what he could develop on his own, he did. And he said, I'm going to outwork you. Like, cool. I see y'all partying over here. I see y'all messing off in the weight room, but I'm going to handle what I can handle. And I'm gonna control what I can control, and
Yep.
that got you where you were, even up to the ACL injury, even after the ACL injury, and even the work you do right now with athletes. And so as we get out of here, man, how can people contact you? Where can they find you, and how should they contact you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I am very responsive on my Instagram. So anyone that DMs me, I try to respond constantly. I don't leave anything behind. Honestly, you're probably gonna get a voice message because I do not like sending messages. So I'll say probably Instagram is the best thing, but cam.goodson, so CAM.GOODSON. That's my Instagram, and then as I said, if you're wanting to get on the wait list, that's also in my bio on there, but it's elitelocker.io for the training platform. I will say with that, it's just my biggest thing is, and that's why I started it, man. It's just I don't want people to have to experience what I've had to do. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to make I want to make kids' jobs easier. And it's like because I understand what it's like to want something. And I understand what it's like to like constantly be pushing and feeling like you're not even doing the right thing because you have no idea. So it's like to give these kids that ability. And it's like, think about what something like this would do to the game over the years. Like, think about how much better these athletes are going to get. And then think about all the new opportunities for kids that didn't have anything. They didn't have coaches. They just have their dad taking them to a park, making them do freaking gassers, thinking that's making them a better athlete. Right. So, I'll say that's kind of where that carries over. But yeah, Instagram is probably the best thing to contact me on. So anyone that hits me up, if you have any questions, I will 100% respond for sure. So
Percent family. That's what I do. We bring great people in here to talk about the football, the journey, what you could be doing to reach the levels that other people have reached. And that's my good friend Cam Goodson. He's got my support in everything he does. If you're looking for a trainer, if you're in the Dallas area, or now we got elitelocker.io.
yep, yes, sir.
elitelocker.io. These resources are available for you guys now, and there's no excuse to say, well, I didn't have this. He's trying to bring you something that he wished he had. So once again, that's Cam Goodson. I'm Drew Davis. We'll catch you guys next time.